Take a look at this. I am standing on a sheet of ice in front of the Georgia Dome, and we have walked around and driven around. The roads do look pretty good, as well as the parking lots, but some of the sidewalks for those heading out early will still have patches of ice. It's just like being in your living room, except for in a few weeks, this will be the bottom of the river. Not only will this cleanup help make the river safer, but some say will also save taxpayer money. So we set out to measure it for ourselves and learn one sex offender lives just 500 feet from an elementary school. This one is only 113 feet from a park. And if the registry is correct, this sex offender lives only 65 feet away from school grounds. The Gwinnett County Sheriff's Department says the first time they booked Ivan Gonzalez, he actually told him he was from Puerto Rico and that his name was John McGowan Torres. Turns out he's from Mexico. And adding to the confusion, a federal immigration database stopped working 3 weeks ago and nobody knew it. Services let out about 20 minutes ago, but so far we have not seen Pastor Christopher Waller exit that building. He is known here as a minister, but in this report from the governor's office, this investigation calls him a principal who not only encouraged but rewarded teachers to cheat. I need to ask, is there anything that... We only got a brief look at Reverend Christopher Waller before one of his congregants covered our camera and pushed it away. But I continued to ask questions as he walked into Butler Street Christian Methodist Church. Is there anything that you want to say to parents, to teachers? Any comment?
It's an open event. I can't make a comment.
Investigators say Waller started recruiting teachers to change test scores when he became the principal of Parks Middle School in 2005. We found a banner inside the school congratulating students on their achievements, but teachers testified they would hold changing parties to correct their answers. In this 800-page report, investigators say one year, 89% of the classrooms at Parks were flagged for having so many erased answers. When asked about it, Waller had nothing to say. Are there any concerns that if you say you weren't involved, that 7 of your teachers, though, have confessed?
I don't have a comment, so ongoing investigation. God bless you.
Waller had little to say to investigators as well, telling them under oath he was, quote, not aware of anyone erasing answers. He also defended his character, pointing out he was a reverend at a Methodist church. Has the pastor talked at all with you guys about the cheating scandal investigation?
No comments.
That was the response we got from every church member that we tried to talk with. We did try to talk with Waller at his home earlier this week, but no one came to the door. Reporting live in Northeast Atlanta, Rebecca Lindstrom, Channel 2 Action News. I have made a flurry of phone calls today, and it's starting to pay off because in the past hour, I have seen code enforcement, police, and an investigator with Georgia Power here taking a look at what's going on. Look at the damage. The scene today is the same as it was on Wednesday when a tree branch first fell, ripping down the power line and leaving tenants in the dark. But Georgia Power says there shouldn't have been electricity coming into these units in the first place. A spokesperson told me there is no active meter here. Jocelyn Brown says utilities are included in her rent, so she never even sees the electricity bills. All she knows is that without power, she has had to throw out all of her food and keep her windows and door open at night to stay cool.
So there was a big safety issue. I was always nervous. I couldn't sleep, which is why probably I'm so tired now. I haven't slept a whole lot between the heat and the safety issue.
Georgia Power and the city say they were not aware of this problem until we made these calls. I did talk with the landlord. She blames the delay on a miscommunication with her insurance company. Code enforcement is still walking the building. They are looking for any other safety violations. We'll talk with them and have that part of the story tonight at 5. Reporting in Northeast Atlanta, Rebecca Lindstrom, Channel 2 Action News.
We will see you in the next hour, Rebecca.
This trunk is blocking the entrance to the building, but it is the branches that caused most of the damage. I had a chance to talk with one woman who says she saw it all. She was standing underneath this awning when the tree fell. She says she was right underneath the letter I. You know exactly where you were standing.
Daggone right. Was standing right there.
Susan says she was on her way to the grocery store around 6 Saturday night when she tucked under this awning to get out of the rain.
You could tell how old it is.
She was only feet away from the tree when it fell without warning.
It was weird. It's like it just came out of nowhere. You didn't hear a boom, a lightning. You didn't hear anything like that. It was just came right out of the ground.
We could see 5 cars buried under its branches. It crushed this Mercedes and, according to Susan, trapped a woman inside this Jeep.
I heard her screaming and screaming and screaming, and I tried to run to help her, but the wires were down, and they were hot wires.
Joseph Kawash owns a restaurant across the street. He's thankful the woman got out with only minor injuries and says this is not the first tree to fall this week.
It's just old oak trees. in the neighborhoods.
On Wednesday, this tree snapped, taking the power down with it. Kawash and other businesses in the area couldn't reopen until Friday. Still, this is the tree he can't stop looking at.
This one was amazing. I mean, it took everybody by surprise.
Especially Susan.
She's alive. Cars can be replaced. It's lives that can't be replaced. But yeah, it is kind of scary.
I talked with several businesses along Grandview. None of them report having their power go out last night. It appears these lines here go to a street light across the parking lot. Live in Buckhead, Rebecca Lindstrom, Channel 2 Action News.
Rebecca, thank you.
Some say it's $1 million in taxpayer money wasted. About 2 months ago, we started looking into a series of grants given to the town of Lanier. The community needed a new water treatment plant, and it got one. The problem? The town isn't using it, and until we started asking questions, nobody even wondered why. This is the water treatment plant in Lanier, but this is where the community actually gets its water. Why?
The chemicals that are required to make the water drinkable, we can't afford at this time.
The new plant ran for just 3 months, then the Community Services District shut it down. It was nearly $90,000 in debt. Board member Portia Carroll says the plant cost more to run than anyone had imagined. The board doubled water bills, but it wasn't enough. Some say the real problem, though, is the board itself. They say it doesn't spend the money wisely.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Because we would have this right here running.
But figuring out how the money is spent is a tough task. This is how the Community Services District keeps its books. And until recently, the board hired one of their family members to send out the bills, collect the money, and put it in the bank.
I know that there's a check and balance system, and every business needs to have that.
Some say without proper bookkeeping, it was only a matter of time before money went missing.
I think, the county, number one.
Tim Diwali says he's still missing $26,000. Diwali built the water treatment plant and should have been paid from the grant money. When the check never came, Diwali went to the county.
They said, we got a piece of paper here that says that you've been paid in full. I said, well, I haven't been paid in full.
The Community Services Board now admits it never paid Diwali, but it can't tell you exactly where the $26,000 went. So we sent this letter asking to see bank statements, checks, and receipts. We never got to see them and probably never will. That's because the documents are now considered evidence. The Sheriff's Department says it's looking into a forgery complaint and that it could turn into an embezzlement investigation. Meanwhile, the county auditor is trying to figure out how much money, if any, is missing and where it went.
I'm not really sure what happened to it.
All she knows is the community can't afford to turn on its new well. And now homeowners literally pay twice as much to drink the old well water. Our investigation has prompted Fresno County to change its grant process. The application asks if communities have enough money to maintain the projects. Now they'll have to prove it, which is good news considering the town is asking for another $50,000, this time for water meters. Group homes are normally tucked in neighborhoods, even though this one's allowed to take troubled teens convicted of sexual assault, even setting fires. But as long as they don't take in more than 6 kids, they don't have to tell anyone in this neighborhood who lives here. Dottie Florentino says she didn't meet her new neighbors until they invited themselves over for a swim.
There'd be kids in my swimming pool, and at night I'd catch them in the middle of the night.
Then came vandalism.
The whole back end of my Scion was spray painted, the Yukon was spray painted, our fence was spray painted.
She installed locks on her gas caps after someone put sugar in her tank.
That was a very costly endeavor.
And then someone set this tree on fire. Florentino says this time she followed the boys back to the group home. But when she knocked on the door to complain,
and the comment was, all our kids are accounted for.
She thought about moving, but realtors had more bad news.
That we had to disclose there was a group home that was next door to us, and that because of that, the value of our home had severely depreciated.
Realtors wouldn't say by how much, but Florentino says it's not fair that by law she has to disclose the location of the group home, but the group home never had to disclose its location to her.
We entirely recommend it.
The state recommends it, but does not require it. We asked Angela Valdez with Community Care Licensing, the state agency that manages group homes, why.
We as an agency can't require them to tell the neighbors.
Who can require them to tell the neighbors?
I think that would have to be a legislative change.
Can't you guys request that it be in the law?
We could.
But they haven't. This year, lawmakers did introduce 3 bills on their own, but Senator Cogdill watched as all 3 failed.
There's a concern that if you allow too much local involvement, this not in my backyard syndrome develops, and then we don't have any place to put these folks.
Florentino says she doesn't want to shut down the group home, just hold it accountable.
I think there was lack of supervision. The children didn't appear to be receiving adequate supervision from the staff in the facility.
We found the home accepted a teenager with a history of setting fires, even though it isn't licensed to do so. And last year, officers responded to the house more than 30 times to deal with mentally unstable children, battery, out-of-control juveniles, even assault with a deadly weapon. Perhaps that's normal for a group home, but not Florentino.
I had to make the decision after the fire. The safety of my children needed to come first.
The state ordered the home to review its policies and increase the number of hours upper management spends on site. The home also held a community meeting to talk for the first time. Florentino says it was a conversation long overdue. The county says it will try to pick up where the state left off. It can't prevent group homes from moving into neighborhoods, but it will now consider new rules to at least require them to notify neighbors. In Fresno, Rebecca Lindstrom, CBS 47 Investigators.